Okay. The demographic is name, Ray Charles. Race, African American. Sex, male. Status is married. His employment is he's a legendary musician. Admission is on 07-25-22. Discharge is 0-25-23. Modality is ABC counseling / level 3 residential inpatient. Place of screening is at ABC counseling. Begin with the screening. Mr. Charles arrived on time at ABC counseling on February 16, 2022 for his screening. The client displayed signs of tremors. The client also showed signs of disorientation when asked what was today's date and time. The client's substance of choice is heroin. The client appears younger than his stated age. The client dressed as neat. The client wore a black suit with sunglasses and dress shoes. The client hygiene is inadequate in his grooming. The client is resistant to interviews. The client posture is erect. The client mood is suspicious. The client affect is fat and content. The client rate of speech is rapid. The client tone is loud. The client's thought process is loose association. The client did not demonstrate insight. The client's thought content is relevant. The client demonstrated psychotic symptoms, hallucinations. The client did not deny visual or auditory hallucinations. The client denied obsessions and compulsions. The client denied phobias. The client is not oriented to time, place, and person. The client memory is intact. The client intelligence is estimated to be above average. The client judgment and impulse control are inadequate. The client denied suicidal ideation. The client denied homicidal ideation. The client had outside support, which consisted of his wife Della and his mother. The client had previous treatment efforts when he was ordered by a Canadian judge to attend a treatment clinic. The client stated he is motivated to complete treatment. The client was explained the rules and regulations of the program. The client was diagnosed with glaucoma, which caused blindness. The client will require additional services, transportation services. The client suffers from drug withdrawals, nightmares, visual and auditory hallucinations. That concludes the screening. Commence the intake. The client's financial data was collected. The client completed an intake sheet. The client and I discussed the contents of any treatment he will receive while at ABC counseling. The client and I reviewed and signed all release of information documents. The client was then assigned a primary counselor. Concludes intake. Commence orientation. The client and I discussed the financial obligations of the program regarding insurance. The client and I went over the hours of operation for ABC counseling inpatient services. The client was explained the ways he will be charged for services or any services he would receive at ABC counseling. The client was explained how all programs within the ABC counseling are operated. The client was explained the inpatient's hours of services. The client and I discussed all causes of any treatment he will receive. Commence assessment. Client, Ray Charles. Race, African American. Sex, male. Status, married. Employment, legendary musician. Location, ABC Counseling. Admission, 07-25-22. Discharge 07-25-23. Location ABC Counseling, Residential, Inpatient. Mr. Charles is a 65-year-old African American male. Mr. Charles is married with 3 children. Mr. Charles has shown signs of substance abuse disorder. Mr. Charles is a self-referral. Mr. Charles lives with his family, which consists of his wife and their 3 children. There has been no change in the client's financial or living conditions. Mr. Charles reported he started using heroin in the 1950s. Mr. Charles reported he used every day of the week. Mr. Charles reported he started with 9 bags of heroin and it progressed to 8 of heroin. Mr. Charles reported he suffers from visual and auditory hallucinations. The client reported he has withdrawals and nightmares. The client reported he was ordered by a Canadian judge to attend a treatment clinic. The client reported he had his hotel room raided by the police because they received a tip that he was in possession of heroin. The client reported his wife found heroin in his shaving bag. Secondary sources: I received information from the Canadian judicial system pertaining to Mr. Charles' deportation at the Canadian border and his possession of heroin and the rest of the time. Commence treatment planning. Problem number 1. The client is unable to resist the urge of using heroin while on tour. Short-term goal number 1. The client will abstain from using heroin. The client will identify and avoid the individuals who can trigger the client. The client will ride on another tour bus from everyone else. Long-term goals. The client will maintain sobriety from all individuals. The client will maintain his distance from all individuals and groups who could trigger the client. Problem number 2. The client might find stopping the use of heroin difficult to do. Short-term goal. The client and I decided that using marijuana instead of heroin might be a better option. Long-term goals. The client will use marijuana instead of heroin. Whenever the client gets the urge to use heroin, he will instead use marijuana until the need of heroin has depleted. Problem number 3. The client's substance use has damaged his relationship with his wife and 3 younger children. Short-term goal number 3. The client and his family will attend family counseling and interpersonal counseling for 90 days. Long-term goal number 3. The client and his family will do family activities every Friday to build a relationship between each other. Counseling. The counseling approach that I used was cognitive behavioral therapy, also known as CBT. The client suffers from PTSD from the drowning of his younger brother. CBT, also known as cognitive behavioral therapy, is used to treat loss as well as drama, which I would think is thought it was good to use. CBT also stimulates exposure to enable the patient to experience trauma without the fear of the outcome. In other words, he can experience the fear of the PTSD he got from his brother's drowning without the outcome of seeing it again. The client and I implemented the treatment plan. Commence case management. The client is a heroin addict who is a legendary musician. The client has had issues with the law. The client was informed on NA meetings that are open in his area. The client was informed to regularly schedule medical appointments to watch his health. The client has developed blindness due to glaucoma at a young age, so transportation services has been contacted. Crisis intervention. The client reported getting outside pressure from recording companies to end his treatment. The client was scheduled interpersonal counseling and client-centered therapy. Client education. The client was informed of content. The client was educated on services that are available. The client was informed of the formal classes he will have to attend while at our inpatient center. The client was given information about the surrounding help groups. The client was informed of the resources that his family and self can benefit from, such as family counseling. Referral. Problem. The client had requested for a traveling counselor to help him maintain sobriety while on tour. The client was given an explanation to explain why we cannot meet that request. The client was directed to ask his manager on trying to meet that referral for him. The client was referred to a transportation service due to his blindness, if any case, if he need to transportation to ABC counseling. Report and record keeping. Pretty much all the client's records are integrated into our system. Consultation with other professionals in regard to client treatment and services. The client case was discussed between the treatment teams and supervisors. And that concludes my case study on Ray Charles. Thank you.